and welcome back to Newfoundland and Labrador Studies 2205. This is Unit 2, The Roots of Our Culture. I'm Miss Fleming, your instructor for this course. This is Section 5, Lesson 7, on the economics of salt fish. Unlike other British possessions, Newfoundland was a significant trader in foreign markets such as Southern Europe, Brazil, and the British Caribbean. I say possessions here because that is what Newfoundland was considered to the British Empire at the time. In 1814, the total amount of salt fish sold overseas was 1 million quintals. Most of that came from Newfoundland. This heavy dependence on international trade has its downside. Newfoundland's economy was vulnerable, as they had little control over it. Ultimately, this led to the government attempting to diversify the economy in 1870. So let's talk about this fish that was for sale. A key to Newfoundland's success in the salt fish trade was its ability to produce different grades of fish, which could then be sold in a wide variety of markets. The highest quality fish was inshore fish, as it was able to be cured almost immediately after being caught, where fishers were so close to their homes. It was lightly salted, hard-dried, and often fetched the highest price. Shore fish, along with Labrador and bank fish, were sold at a variety of grades. So let's take a look at them. Firstly is highest grade, also called merchantable. It is thick, golden fish, lightly salted, not too dry. Mid-grade, which still fetched a good price, was sometimes called Madeira. It was thinner than merchant grade, a lesser quality than the merchantable grade as well, but still intact. And then finally was the low-grade fish, sometimes called the West Indian cure. Poor color and often in broken pieces as opposed to one large fillet. Once fish was cured, it was up to the merchants to sell the product to foreign markets, such as Spain, Greece, Italy, and Brazil. Considering it was going to warm climates, there was a high demand for well-preserved yet affordable sources of protein. Saltfish was economically viable. It was lightweight, small, thoroughly cured, and therefore easily transportable. But of course, they faced international competition. As the end of the 19th century approached, saltfish became less important in people's diets. One of the reasons for this was new technology. What was that new technology that came to be at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century? Well, it was refrigeration. And with refrigeration and freezing, fresh meat could be shipped from further distances. The salt fish trade grew more competitive as well, with Norway and France increasing their exports. With an overall increase in the world's population, the exports of salt fish did actually increase at this time, but Newfoundland had a lower percentage of the market share with the competition from Norway and France. If you see here on this line graph, around 1890, despite Newfoundland having the highest market share, France began to surpass them. Let's talk about the roles of merchants in this system. By the late 19th century, fish merchants were dominated by St. John's firms and a few communities like Trinity and Bonavista. Fishers in smaller outports dealt with a smaller outport merchant, who then dealt with the larger firm, similar to a wholesaler. The merchant fisher system worked on credit, called the truck system. You might have heard that term before. In this cashless system, fishers would receive household and fishing supplies in exchange for their fish. Considering fish only went to market once or twice a year, there was no way for fishers to maintain themselves without this system. And then, of course, prices and supplies of fish were decided by the merchants. This image here is of the Ryan premises in Bonavista, which was the Ryan merchant firm. There are various buildings here, which was where they housed the fish in their merchant store. You can visit it now as a museum. Credit relations cycled 4 years, and in some cases for generations, and they were difficult to break. There were advantages and disadvantages to this system for everyone involved. Firstly, advantages to the merchant was a secured supply of fish. For the fisher, he could live and work even if he could not afford to pay his way. But disadvantages to this system were that fishers remained impoverished. There's no way for them to get ahead. Merchants were also then saddled with bad debts, produced low-quality fish, and discouraged innovation in the colony's economy. And we'll learn more about that merchant influence when we talk about governance in Section 6. So now it's time to review. I'm going to ask you to complete your activities in Brightspace, and I hope that you have some fun.